Hey guys, welcome back to Star Wars Timeline. My name is Ben. I'm honored to once again invite David Sherrill. We had a previous podcast, really fun discussion. David is a craftsman, he's a painter, he's a huge Star Wars fan, and he's also just an awesome guy. Very quick reminder, guys, last time we talked about Dave's early years as an artist, we talked about his earliest inspirations, also talked about some dinosaurs, his huge love for Star Wars franchise. We talked some anime, some video games. David, what's the latest? Tell us what's going on in your life.
It's gearing up for the Christmas sales, so I'm packing shipping like every day right now.
That's awesome. That's good news. Yeah, I've seen on your Twitter feed you're quite busy, so that's always nice, right?
I'm about 300 orders behind, so as soon as we're done, I'm shoving stuff in boxes.
Nice. It was actually one of the first questions I prepped here. I'm like, holiday season is coming up. Obviously, people celebrating different things for this like a whole month. And probably, art commissions are coming up. Like, you must be a busy bumblebee. Like, you're probably all over the place, right?
Yeah, there's just me and the wife usually doesn't help as much. So I am kind of a one-man show.
That's cool, man. I hope the enterprise grows and then you're able to hire, more hands just like Uncle Owen, in the farms. And he's like, Luke, maybe next year you'll get to go, but right now I need you. That kind of sort of deal. But David, is printing calendars a new thing for you?
Absolutely. I need a nephew.
Yeah. Right?
No, actually I've done two already.
So it's not that.
And then I've got my third one coming out right now.
Nice. What's the pricing on those, and where can people find them if they want a copy of those?
$30. If they go before they arrive, it's $5 off. So it's only 25. But my art prints are only $20, and the whole calendar, which is 14 prints and 100 nerdy holidays,
right,
is only $5 more. So it's a killer deal, I feel like.
Guys, we're also going to drop all the relevant links in this video description below. So for everyone who's watching this podcast, if you already are familiar with David's art, I mean, he has quite a few blogs out there. He's growing his following. But if you're interested in the prints, I'll drop all the links here so you can go and pick up a copy. They really look dope. And David, also, just before we started rolling this podcast, you mentioned that you won a novelty artist from Cleveland Magazine. So congratulations on that. That's really good news. I'm sorry, I've been out of the loop. I've been away from the country, so I haven't been following up on all my, Star Wars friends on social media. So I'm very happy for you. How was that go? How did that feel to win that award?
It was a huge surprise. I didn't know I was on the radar at all. When I actually got a letter that said that I'd won, I thought it was a scam. I thought they were joking with me. Yeah. I put novelty artist on my Instagram feed because I didn't want people to then be disappointed. So when I won best novelty artist, I thought, well, maybe I didn't. Maybe it's a scam.
Yeah, so they're a large publication, right? Because I'm not familiar with them personally.
Yeah, huge. They had a party and invited us to go, and it was the richest people in Cleveland. I had no idea. The people there were so rich that it changed the algorithms on my Facebook ads.
Holy crap, that's awesome, man.
Now I see ads for like expensive watches. Yeah. It used to be just boner hair loss cream, and now it's like $3,000 watches.
That's insane, man. But I'm very happy because, again, for a person like myself who's clueless, I would imagine, it's probably just some Cleveland magazine publication. David is making strides out there. He's getting more popular, but it's actually a huge mag out there. So it's pretty awesome. And you also did a commission for a musician from a Scottish band called Churches, if I'm pronouncing them correctly.
Yeah, Martin Dotree. Actually, he bought this painting from me, and he'd been wanting to get a painting for about a year or so, and he just followed me on Instagram and messaged me. I was almost done with this, and it's like, hey, Martin, do you want this one? He was like, absolutely, I do.
Nice. Yeah, this one I think is one of the more elaborate pieces that you've done. It's just brimming with detail because you have works, as we'll discuss in this podcast, which are kind of like just a touch. Like, oh, here is a, ATST Walker, and the rest of the landscape is just already there. But this one, you really like stack a lot of new content onto the canvas. That's a lot of your personal work there. But before we actually begin and get into the nitty gritty of it, I wanted to sort of have a refresher for our audience who are seeing you and I for the first time. What I call your style as painting preservation, and you personally call David Ruin's art. Can you just give us the gist of what is it exactly that you do your style?
So what I do is I take thrifted paintings, usually from Goodwill or just wherever I can find them, and then I will add usually Star Wars. Star Wars is what I nerd out about the most. But sometimes Godzilla, sometimes Monty Python, all kinds of stuff.
We froze up there a bit. No worries. I heard Star Wars. That's the one thing you nerd about a lot. I've seen some of the Lord of the Rings recently. You mentioned Monty Python, right?
Yeah.
And dude, when I saw that Doom painting, I'm like, yes, the gaming community is being represented there. That's really, really awesome. And also,
I'm a big fan of Doom.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Doom is something that I think both from yours and my generation, I think one of the biggest novelties about that game when it dropped on PC, personal computers, is the fact that you could store the entire full game onto one floppy disk, which in those days, it was unheard of. It was like, holy crap, now you could take a video game and actually take it to your friend's house. It was unreal.
Yeah. I've been playing the newest Doom game, Doom
Eternal, right?
It's not Revolution. Yeah, Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
And in that game, you can sit at a desk and play the old Doom 2 game, and it's just so much fun. I played Doom 2 more than I played Doom Eternal.
Yeah, that's awesome. And my younger brother, he's more of a FPS fan than I am. Like, I would play on occasion, but he plays those a lot. And he's like, Ben, dude, you got to check out the latest Doom games. They're really, really awesome. And, as much as I love that, they're kind of like harkening back to the originals. What I really love about these old school titles like the original Doom is that if sometime in the gaming community, those games were considered obsolete, now this sort of pixel art is coming back, right? Because all you had these monsters and even your character is just drawn sprites. It's two-dimensional art. But it's now being truly recognized as art, and it's coming full swing. And I'm just so happy that you did homage to that because, I love that. I love the 16-bit era. I love the original Doom era, the Wolfenstein. It's truly art. These artists had to work with the minimal instruments that they had in their hands, and they just made do, and it looked awesome.
Yeah. I remember playing in 1987, 88. Castle Wolfenstein on a PC, and it was very flat and it wasn't three-dimensional yet. So I've played every iteration of that because Castle Wolfenstein became Doom, and Doom became what it is now. The very first first-person shooters.
Yeah, man. No, it's. I'm glad. It's something that I definitely connect with people on a personal level. Like, oh, you like video games? I like video games. It's a great, like, it's almost like heavy metal. It's like you bond like brothers in metal, like something. Oh yes, heavy metal and video games. It's kind of it connects people in a great way. But now just to sort of start getting into it, and talk about your art, I gotta say, like as an introduction, there's something absolutely spellbinding about the history of American landscape art. And, when I look at the paintings that you're able to thrift and find, it's almost like a representation of what came before that earlier school of, the colonialism and then portraying the frontier, American, frontier. And the paintings that you pick up, they're like a combination of Bob Ross and a weird combo of the places where George Lucas was born, right? He's from California, Modesto, which I understand has a lot of farmlands and kind of these sort of landscapes, which probably the creator of Star Wars had also inspiration from nature, just observing and looking at all of these things growing up in the 50s in America. And, the paintings that you do, even though they have these pop culture icons like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, they still capture the spirit of American wilderness. And the art really meshes well with these otherworldly or fantasy themes that you introduce. Once again, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. Just talk about that a little bit. Was that through accident, or it's something that you recognized in the original paintings and thought, well, you know what, let me just add an element to it, but preserve the overall aura of the original work?
The way I got started doing this is I had a vintage store, and I had a vintage thrifted painting, which I thought was great. I thought it was beautiful. It had a nice frame. And I tried to sell it for like $20 for maybe a few years, and I couldn't get any buyers on it. I knocked it down to $5, which is what I'd paid for it.
Yeah.
And I'd seen Banksy kind of do this kind of thing, and I'd seen other people do it. And I said, well, if I'm going to throw it away, I'll give it a shot, because I draw, but I really didn't know how to paint. And so my very first one was a Star Wars painting, and because it looked like Andor. So I had a fallen ATST, half submerged in the water, and then Ewoks were standing on it spearfishing into the ground.
Nice.
And I thought it was fun. I ended up giving it to a friend. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea how to paint. I just kind of just went for it. I've always had a lot of audacity when it comes to starting a project. I always kind of go into it with like, it's just you put the paint on the painting, and then that's art. I better.
Sorry, we lost you just for a second. Repeat those last couple of things. Yeah, sorry.
I don't remember what I said.
You were mentioning how, you had these Ewoks and they were spirit fishing. It's kind of like how the idea just came to you, and you were just throwing, paint on the canvas.
The original one, it was a battle scene that had a battle that had long ago happened.
Right.
So there's crashed Imperial Walkers and ATSTs, and the Ewoks are primitive fishing. They're kind of throwing spears into the water and surviving on Andor after everything.
Yeah, I think partially what makes your work a success is that there is no such feeling, of like really fine-tuned or trained academia kind of painter. There's a lot of daring and experimentation and just playfulness to it, right? It doesn't feel like, I'm just going to arrange everything. Everything is going to look super professional and clean. It's just like, hey, I'm learning, I'm picking up on the process. And I'm pretty sure when people looked at your earlier work, they recognize that you're learning. They're understanding the fact that you're artist or painter, let's say, in training. But it's the ideas that really count.
It was a lucky kind of thing that I was a rudimentary painter, because these paintings, while beautiful, are not terribly detailed. A lot of this is just splashed on with a wet brush, and there's wood, but there's no definition. There's no real outline of this window.
Right.
And my art was already so rudimentary because I didn't know how to paint, that it matched a little bit better than if I was a fine painter. And I enjoy painting. I like doing portrait painting, which is really very difficult. There's nothing harder than the human face. But this has been a ton of fun to learn this style and to match it, and to do. I've learned a lot about colors also, and how to make a beautiful piece of art without using any black, or to mix blues and oranges to get different reflections. And there's a lot of clever stuff that they do where, like, sometimes there'll be a white color this way and a blue color reflecting back that direction.
Right.
And being in a space where I'm intimate with these paintings has been kind of a privilege. I feel like I'm taking what they're doing and prolonging it. These paintings were doomed.
Yeah.
They were going to probably get ripped up, and now Martin will probably keep this for another who knows, 30 years before he donates it to Goodwill and somebody else adds to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's why I personally like to call your style painting rescue, because honestly, all jokes aside, that's what you do. A painting that perhaps some younger or inspiring artist was working on, and now it's like laying somewhere in a store on the shelf and nobody's looking at it anymore. You sort of extending it because people do recognize you. Openly state to people, this is what I do. This is my work on top of somebody else's work, and you kind of like they work together again in a very like great synergy, and it just works. And I think it gives people appreciation that it's like two artists, like collaborative work, even though we may not know the name, of the original artist. But one of the recent paintings that I saw on your Twitter, the lighthouse beach painting, which I immediately started like firing off concepts from Rogue One, right? Because we see a lot of like beach battles there towards the second half of the movie. What's the story behind that painting?
So that painting was in my vintage store for about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And the whole time I had thought, well, it just needs some big Imperial walkers walking in from the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Jeffrey J., who is a comedian in LA that I used to do stand-up with in Dallas,
mm-hmm.
Said, hey, I want to get something for my girlfriend. Could you do something? I said, well, I have this idea. If you want it, I could do it for this much. And he's like,
right.
Absolutely. So I started laying it down. I painted it all in one night. And kind of as an afterthought, I was like, well, what if I put R2-D2 like as if he's facing off against this Imperial army? And I don't know if that's what grabbed everyone's attention, but I put it on Reddit and it blew up. It was huge. It just went everywhere. If you go, you know what Yandex is?
No. Oh, Yandex is the Russian side.
Yeah. It's like
Yandex.
Google.
Yeah, I know it.
Is it Yandex?
Oh, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I know it.
So for Yandex, I Google image searched my own, that specific art, and it's literally everywhere. There's stuff showing up in Polish and in Russian and in French. And it was just mind blowing how far that one silly painting I did for $300. And I've sold, posters and prints of it for years. I really enjoy that people like that painting. And I try to, I actually put it at half price. So it's only $10 for a print of it,
right?
Because honestly, I like that people like it and I want it to be in their homes. So I do that one for half price right now because why not? I've made my money off of it. I want everybody to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what drew my personal attention to it, once I was already familiar with your style and what sort of kind of expect from your paintings, when I looked at that one, for some strange reason, and I think I say it as a compliment, it leans less into the whimsical and comedic stuff, and there's more of true tension there. There's a kind of like a story element happening there, especially what you did with the droids. And then the fact that the way you set up the composition, they're coming into the foreground, like this very menacing, these walkers, this huge killing robots, right? It just gives you this idea of like that you as audience, you're standing behind the shoulder of these droids and it gives you that, once again, that very gritty moment from the Rogue One where, the action in that movie was so filled with tension, right?
So good.
Yeah, it was so good. And your painting captured that. But once again, just to show how much of a contrast you're able to have in your, a resume, we're moving from that painting to something that I just literally saw just today, the Doom painting, which just blew my face off. Like, you even introduced the little, how do you call it, UI, user interface on the bottom where you see the actual face of the hero and like how many bullets are left. And it's like, I love the fact that it's representing our gaming community. And just talk about your love for Doom for a little bit, because it's just so freaking awesome.
I had the idea and I was just so excited about it. And I was going to do it for a long time. My friend at the print shop, she actually said, I want to do one for my husband. Do you ever do video game ones? It's like, I kind of want to do a Doom one. And
Yeah.
she said, he loves Doom. I said, well, does he love the original Doom? And she's like, absolutely. Yeah, he plays the original Doom all the time. It's like, I'm in 100%. So I, I think I sold that painting to her for like $200 or something cheap, like what I would usually do, like one Wookiee. But I did so much more because I just had so much fun with it.
Yeah.
It was a blast. I would do another Doom painting in a heartbeat. Probably not for $200 though.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I think you should continue in that direction. Experiment with video games. It's just a really, really was a great, great happy accident. It's just boom. It's just something about it just works. My encounter with Doom was when my first year in the United States, 1996, when I got my first personal computer, and Doom was something because it's imagery, right? It's very evocative and very like kind of like ooh, almost like Dungeons and Dragons. So it's like satanic stuff, and you see the pentagrams and you see the demons. So for a teenager, especially like myself, who even in Russia, I grew up with heavy metal. I would listen to Metallica when all the kids in the street was like, "What the hell is this music?" So when you reach out and in the gaming, right, and you look at something like Doom, it is very heavy metal, and it's something, that idea of a forbidden seed. It's like, oh, if my parents saw it, they'll probably scold me. Even though my family is not highly super religious, but still it has those motifs. You know, the pentagram, the demons, the horns, everything. And it's just something that you want to experiment. It's something intimate that you have with the game. You sit by yourself at the personal computer like, I'm not doing homework. I'm playing this crazy bloody game. It's just so fun.
But when you play it, it's silly.
It's
Like,
stupid.
There's a cat demon.
Yeah, and then I think it also has.
It's not satanic. It's just funny.
Yeah, it's just stupid, right? What's this monster from Dungeons and Dragons? The Beholder, the one that has multiple eyes.
Yeah.
Right. They have the Beholder monster, and Doom is like
Beholder.
a fantasy element. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Okay, next, David, I want you to kind of delve a little bit deeper into the process of how you do your paintings. And I wanted to find out a little bit about the process itself. Like, you know, do you observe the artwork? Do you take a look at the canvas of what is already being created and then consider and contemplate, almost like a Zen artist, which elements are you going to add and how it's all going to resolve into one finished work? Or do you just freely paint away and imagine things along the way?
Oh, I spend a lot of time looking at them, trying to decide what the story would be and what, like, you know, there's a road here and there's stuff right here. Mm-hmm. So, like, if it's this size, then that means a human has to be about this size. So everything's got to be there. And if it's closer, you know, the probe droid can get a little bit bigger. Mm-hmm. And then I also consider, like, what does this planet look like? What planet would it be? And what's happening in this? This one was just kind of a nice fall. So I didn't really know where to say it was, but that was the idea behind this one, was a nice fall setting. I always try and tell a story with what I'm doing. Sometimes it's just an Imperial Walker, and that's all there is. And those I intend to sell for like a lot cheaper. But what I really want to do is convey a story. Like with the R2 versus the Empire, it was, you know, R2D2 versus an Imperial Walker, which seems impossible, but that's the kind of thing that Star Wars is. They set up an impossible situation and then a miraculous victory. This one, I've done a lot of laser fights where they're shooting and there's action going. And I thought, how cool would it be if it was just a country road and kind of a peaceful moment where someone has, this guy in my head, this guy has been driving his ATSD and it just malfunctioned and it fell right off the path. So there's little scuff marks and shadows from him, but he was in the front and he's holding up an entire Imperial invasion. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun if, like, there were Imperial invasion had probe droids? Like, maybe they use them for other things besides exploring and looking for rebel bases. So in this one, he's kind of observing and talking with the driver. And then I decided to add in KS2O droids because they're Imperial equipment,
Right.
and they were used at the same time as the Imperial Walkers, and it seemed like a fun mix to me. I was originally going to add some Gronk droids also, and maybe a tiny mouse droid, and maybe a floating torture droid that what they threatened Leia with in the first movie.
Yeah, I remember that one.
But after I got to this point, it seemed to have like this quiet sister look to it, where these luminous, spooky KS-2O droids are kind of just observing, and like they're kind of in the shadows. And I thought, if I put a Gronk droid in there, it's going to be silly, and it's already got a really serious feel to it. So I wanted to keep it serious. So I ditched the funny droids and just kept with this like little sinister. Someone online suggested a long time ago that I do one that's all Empire, and that's what I went for on this one. It's every bit of it is Empire stuff. There's no good guys in this one,
right?
And it was more fun doing that, in my opinion.
Yeah, as an artist myself, have like 7 formal years of training. I did a little bit of like figure drawing and animation, and like I took a year of oil canvas. I did some sculptures. I did different things just for my own sake, just to try my hands at it. And I kind of surmised, looking at your paintings, that there is a sense of story going on, and a lot of thought process went into it. But I still wanted to ask this question for our audience to be able to hear it also from you firsthand. There is a lot of preparation work goes into it. It's not just you look at the painting and the fans themselves start sort of assigning attributes to it. Like, oh, that's probably a story going on there. This stormtrooper is looking at that one for a reason. It's not just us, the audience. Obviously, we are interacting with your work, but we also recognize that you have put a lot of thought and deliberation into it in order for it to come out like that. It doesn't just come out of blue. And to get a little bit more to the technical aspect, it's something that actually I wanted to ask you in our first podcast, but we just sort of ran out of time. And I still preserved those questions because I keep all of my questions and documents. So I'm going to return and revisit back those couple of questions just on the technical aspect of it. And the first question I had, before you even touch someone else's painting, do you have like a separate sheet of paper where you do like preliminary drawing or even painting to sample your colors or figure out your perspective or dimensions, what everybody's sizes is going to be?
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes I'll just sketch the basic of, okay, there's trees here and this is the way the plane is. And I didn't know you did art, by the way. I have to see your art now.
I don't consider myself much of an artist. I have still my, pads. I definitely can. I'll bring them out and I'll show them to you. Where I did years of figure drawing, mostly just drawing nudes, males and females. Then I did a full year when I was still back in community college here at Lehman College in the Bronx. I took a year of oil painting, and I painted a little bit of those. I hope I can find them. And we'll hit pause, guys, and I'll bring them out just so David could take a look and judge my.
You don't have to do it right now. You can send them to me.
Yeah,
I'm super excited. I like finding out that people are artists.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll actually photograph the original painting, and I'll paint on it to test the colors.
That's
or
smart.
I will just use a marker and just sketch different ideas and make sure that they're right, because everything has to sit properly on the screen the way you want. That's the nice thing about probe droids, is they can be any size, any shape. Right. As long as they're kind of up and down, you're good.
But then you just, with their size, you kind of like move them into the foreground or background, and they change perspective a little bit. But they still, because they're symmetrical, they're not as hard to draw as, let's say, a human, like a stormtrooper doing a gesture or something. Then you have to draw it in perspective. It has to be correct. It has to match correctly with like that ATST worker and such. But another question that I had, David, is specifically in terms of color. Now, oil has a very particular quality about it that after you throw it on the canvas and X amount of years pass, that it kind of changes color. Like, how do you match your own freshly introduced oils to what already existed before? Like, do you have to fade your colors, or what do you do to them?
I paint in acrylic.
Okay.
And the reason is because I will paint over and over and over. I painted this AT-AT,
Hmm.
I bet 7 times because I wanted it to exactly match this yellow brown and some of this. So I painted it. And then I also had this problem that there's a huge tree here
Right.
and the light is coming in at this direction.
Hmm.
So I had to figure out the shadow. And originally I had the shadow here. It didn't look good, but I moved it towards the back and I gave it little holes. But I paint in acrylics, and I actually, here's my secret for painting for me.
Hmm.
This is my
A fan.
my secret weapon.
Hmm.
I use a blow dryer so that I can dry my paints really quick.
Mm.
When I look at it and I'm like, okay, that's way too white. That's way too yellow. So
Mm.
I'll use a hair dryer and blow on it, and then I'll repaint the entire thing. So some of these are kind of thick.
I see. And the blow dry, it doesn't crack your acrylics?
No, I don't use it on high heat, just enough to get it dried.
Mm. And another question I had is that I know after an oil painting is done, oftentimes they'll put a fixing spray on top of it. For those of you guys who may not be familiar, it's basically a special chemical that basically coats your oils or acrylics and fixates it forever. But even with that, colors still fade over the years, especially if direct sunlight is hitting them. That's why when you guys go to galleries, you never see oil or acrylic painting standing in direct sunlight. It will never happen. It's always artificial light, and they light them very specifically to preserve the color. So do you take off like the outer layer of that, chemicals on the original painting, or do you touch up the original colors to match with the new ones, or no?
There are times when I'll change the original colors. This time, it didn't feel dark enough back here to me because all the shadows coming this way. So
Right.
I changed a lot back here to make it darker. I don't seal my paintings, but I also don't sell them for $3,000 like
Right.
a professional fine art oil painter would do a portrait. They would seal it perfectly. Nobody's gonna throw soup at my paintings. so,
You never know.
I might throw soup at them.
Please don't. Please
But
don't do that.
I feel like they're, yeah. And this is always going to be in somebody's house instead of at a museum. I know I'm doing silly art, and I like doing it. I'm having a lot of fun, but
Yeah.
I try to invest too much time, too much money, too much effort into something it's just Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's just Doom. It's fun stuff.
But it's funny when I always circle back to Star Wars fandom that I interact with through my YouTube channel, through Facebook group. It's fun and silly, and yes, it's all that, but at the same time, it means so much to people. The fond memories with family members. It's kind of like the happiest days of people's lives. That whimsical, that comedic, or that goofy or cheesy stuff. It also means a lot to people. It's like forever in people's hearts. And when you bring an element of surprise or comedy, something, it just brings so much joy to people. And I'm telling you, when I look at your art, and I hope I'm right, I was following this freestyler rapper, David Mack, way before he exploded, years back, when his like Facebook and YouTube videos were like in the hundreds. And there was certain quality about that person, about his charisma, about his drive, that I knew he's bound to explode someday. So when I look at your art and just your whole character, man, like you are a character as an artist, and it like translates into your paintings, I can't help but feel like this dude is going to explode someday. Like I want to be somewhere in the end credits of David Sherrill's art documentary on Netflix. Just like, please put me somewhere at the end of it. It's like
you got it.
Yeah, man. It's honestly your art has that vibe, that quality to it. It's explosive. David,
I do actually want to make a Netflix documentary next year. I'm going to try. I've got some people who are videographers locally, and I've got some really crazy stunts. I wanted to kind of do like a art version of Jackass.
Yeah. I would say like something in the style of like a Tiger King, but of arts, like just a completely bizarre, completely
Yeah.
wacky. And I think what people recognize today is if 20 years ago somebody like a nerd, people frowned on it, like, hey, look, he's a nerd, he's a gamer, he's an artist. Now it's like it's in, and I think what people really appreciate and respect about it, it's direct, it's who you are. There is no pretense. There is no like kind of like, oh, a little tie and a collar there. I am this persona. It's honest. Something about the artists out there, the blue hair, the yellow shirt, everything about it is honest. It's something that communicates to people directly, and that's what people respond to. And yeah, if
I've
yeah,
I've been weird for like 40 years now. So when people mention my green hair to me, I'm like, oh yeah, it is green.
yeah,
I forget that it's not normal because I also live in an arts district. This shirt's beautiful, isn't it?
yeah, it's Jabba the
It's
Hutt.
by an artist called Sean Star Wars. He does some amazing Star Wars stuff. You should check him out.
Nice.
But I've was the biggest nerd in a very small town in Texas in the 80s and 90s, and I was one of the only. I had three good friends who loved sci-fi and loved fun, weird stuff, and we listened to grunge music when everybody was listening to like Garth.
Yeah,
We thought we were punks, but we're just nerds, just
yeah,
having fun. That's what I've always done. I've played in bands for a long time, and I did stand up for a while, and I never wanted to be an office guy. So if people are enjoying what I'm doing now, I love it. I've been a professional artist for 2 years now, and it has been the best part of my life. I absolutely love it. It's a privilege to do this.
yeah.
And every time somebody buys a print from me, I'm like, I don't know why you did that, but fucking thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand the feeling. It's like when people. So my biggest YouTube video that is like in the 20,000s, which I'm basically recommending books that I've been reading for years, and I give them my beginners list and why they should read them. And people just come back to it's like, hey man, thank you so much putting me on the road of enjoying these books. I've done nothing. These books already existed. All I did was some dork stepped in and told you where he thinks you should start reading. It's a huge compliment. I'm like, wow, I was able to influence somebody's interest in Star Wars. That it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling when you give.
Yeah.
David, moving on, let's nerd out a little bit and talk about the Star Wars. I want to catch up to you on the latest Star Wars things because, it's since the acquisition in 2012, since Disney acquired, this franchise, it's been a rocky road. Not everything has been perfect, but I think over the years, Lucasfilm and Disney, they were able to provide a variety of content. And we have live action, we have animation, and the latest in the Disney Plus is the Andor show. It was 12 episodes long, and a lot of critics are raving about it. A lot of fans are enjoying it. Obviously, not everyone, but a lot of do.
Oh yeah.
I want to ask you about the Andor show. What were some of the favorite things in the show for you? What did you like?
You know what I loved about it? It wasn't very Star Wars. It was in the universe, but there was no Jedi. There was no lightsabers. There was barely any stormtroopers. It was a beautiful story that was fun and engaging with this excitement and danger. But it was very little Star Wars. But it was an adult story. It wasn't made for little kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love the prequels. I think they're fun. But when I watch them, I just say, yeah, it was made for little kids. I can enjoy a kids movie.
Right.
But Andor was it was a thinker, and it was emotional, and it was exciting, and Andor was great. People are saying it's the best Star Wars out. I wouldn't say that, but I think it's fantastic. They did Pedro, just amazing. Not Pedro. Who's
Diego Luna?
Yeah, Diego. Diego was amazing in it. And Andor was such a good movie.
Yeah.
Such a good movie. And
you're talking about, I think, Rogue One.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Rogue
Yeah,
One.
it's fine. Yeah.
I'm a burnout.
Yeah. Yeah. Rogue One was the movie, right?
Yeah, I actually when I did the painting for the guy that built R2D2, I said the wrong droids at one point.
Hmm.
He was like, you know that's not what you're talking about, right? I was like, oh, I'm the worst nerd ever.
No worries. But what did you think about also the? I wanted to get your thoughts on the photography and like the color palettes that they used in the show, because it's a much darker, more oppressive tone.
Yeah, I thought it was beautiful,
Hmm.
beautifully shot, beautifully filmed, beautifully acted,
Hmm.
fun. A Stellar Skarsgård is so good in everything.
Yeah, man, he's really sharp. He has so much nuance in his performance. Like you see that outer layer. Everybody talks about that favorite scene where he is this rough warrior, right? And then he has to go and deal in Coruscant with Mon Mothma and keep all the pretenses. And he puts on this little wig, and he's like, he's practicing to be, part of the elite, and he's smiling. But
Yeah,
you know what's going on in his mind, in his heart. It's a whole different person there. That was
it
pretty.
was so because his feminine. It was
Say it again. I'm sorry. Say it again from the beginning.
uh, his character when he switched roles.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful camouflage because his character was so kind of effeminate and glad and smiley, and
Yeah. Very
that you
flamboyant.
wouldn't think he
Hmm.
was a killer spy. And that's what you would do. You would want to throw people way off your scent if you were a literal rebel spy.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. Just so much fun.
Yeah. And transformation not only of the actor, but of the character in the show, right? That was also an interesting and exciting thing to see,
Yes.
that this warrior is also a great
Yeah.
actor. It kind of makes you wonder, like, did
Oh,
he have
yeah.
some acting background before this whole, great, evil empire came and started like trampling people's lives? Like, what was his past like, right? It makes you wonder what his persona was like. And it's also an interesting contrast between your classical adventurous Star Wars, lightsabers and young people discovering themselves, versus this very dark, mature theme. And you see this Imperial ISB, Imperial Security Bureau, which is almost like equivalent of the German Nazi, like SS, right? Like the military police. It was like, holy crap, you see the parallels there. It's insane. And it makes you pause for a second. And like you mentioned before, if the prequel trilogy is more family oriented and kids oriented, when you see Coruscant, all right, sorry guys, we had a little tiny interruption there, but yeah, I was basically talking about the character of Lucy, and it makes you wonder what kind of a persona he might have been before this evil empire came in and just started destroying everybody's lifestyle. But I've prepared a very interesting painting related question for you. So,
Oh, okay, cool.
all right, so think of Andor and everything that it was trying to say. If you were to incorporate Andor characters from the show into your painting, what styles of painters would you have to find to like convey that feeling?
It would have to be someone with a close up, because usually landscapes like this are zoomed out so far.
Hmm.
I thought about doing the exploded Death Star,
Right.
when they were putting it together.
Yeah.
Thought that in the sky might be good, but I don't have the right painting for it. But maybe I don't know. If I could get a crowd scene of some sort, I could maybe
Hmm.
sneak in a quiet spy scene, because it's espionage. So
Right.
everyone around them naturally wouldn't know what they're doing. So if I could find a scene with people, that would be perfect. But for the most part, what I've got is mountains and trees.
Yeah. So far, you're working with landscapists, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought of two artists specifically. I'm gonna guess that you know one of them, but the second one, I'm just not sure. I'm gonna bring them
Okay.
up because once again, Andor offers us a window in this very dark and kind of like dystopian future, almost like Orwell's, 1984, kind of like really, really scary future. And one painter that I was thinking of is Hans Rudy Geiger. the Swiss
Oh,
painter,
yeah.
right? Who
Yeah.
conceptualized all the visuals for the Aliens movies. Everything that you see in Aliens 1, 2, that's all Geiger's work.
Yeah.
So just imagine one of his like crazy paintings and then add David to it and your crazy style. You're just going to be like sprinkling Andor characters all over that place. It would be awesome.
I'm
man.
into that.
Right? So you are familiar with his work.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Love Geiger.
And another painter that I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that he was kind of like a Geiger's spiritual guide, almost like a generation 10 years before Geiger, who is from Poland, and his name is Zdzisław Beksinski. And he is this magical realist. And when you look at his paintings, I'll throw you a link like after we finish filming.
Please.
I think it would blow your mind. He draws these very dystopian, grotesque, just mind-blowing landscapes of complete doom and desolation. Like, and you look at his stuff, there's so much subtext in them, and it's so much stuff going on, that very oppressive feel. I feel like if you got scored on one of his paintings and you like superimpose Andor characters on top of that, it'll be like,
oh, that'd be wonderful. That'd be a dream.
I'm really, yeah.
If I messed with either of those artists, everybody would roast me.
But I'm very curious with your thoughts. I think I wanted to give you, I always try to shout out this artist to somebody that I talk about kind of like in our spectrum of, interest, somebody who's an artist. He's just a tremendous painter. And I think he was very, very prominent in Eastern and Central Europe, like in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's talk just a tiny bit about Switch from live action. We also had the Tales of the Jedi animated show that came out. Have you watched it?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that one was only 6 episodes. It was quite short, and we sort of concentrated on 2 characters primarily, because what the Andor show has done, we had these 3-episode arcs, and it kind of moved the story in that sense. But when it came to the Tales of the Jedi, we sort of have 3 episodes for the Count Dooku, and then we have 3 episodes for the Ahsoka. And obviously, I know you're a huge Star Wars prequels fan, and I wanted to ask you, did you enjoy this kind of comeback to the prominent characters from the Clone Wars era? We got Dooku and we got Ahsoka.
I can tell you right now, if anything Star Wars comes out, I love it. I'm not picky. If there's lightsabers and stuff, I'm into it. Yeah. But I really enjoyed it. I thought the Count Dooku and his Padawan Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah.
I thought that was so fun to see, because I had forgotten that was his master, his teacher.
Yeah.
And to see them frustrated with what they're asked to do,
yeah,
and almost violent. You could kind of feel that Count Dooku, he could get pulled off the right path pretty easy.
Yeah. It almost paints a different picture of the whole Jedi Order, where if you try to see them from this glorious, noble light in the films themselves, the prequels, here, Dooku is questioning things, and there's quite a few novels now which elaborate of why Count Dooku decided to leave the Order, which he was so disillusioned with them, and that short animation kind of explores that. I was blown away by the nuance, how like there's these quiet moments, and he's looking at his compatriot Mace Windu, another Jedi, and other guys like straight as an arrow. The Jedi Order said it, and that's the way we're going to do it. Is like, no, what we might be doing here is wrong. And to convey that via animation I thought was tremendous.
Yeah. The animation was great. It really looked like the actors too. It looked like young versions of them. It was cool because it was very stylistic.
Yeah.
But you could. Right away, I knew who they were without them telling me, because they got the faces just right, and the mannerisms and the everything. I had so much fun watching that.
Yeah, and I believe the voice actor for younger Qui-Gon Jinn is actually Liam Neeson's son.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So somebody actually told me that. I didn't know that as well. I was like, oh, how convenient.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's funny. You look at this animated figure and like, yo, that's Liam Neeson when he was younger. It's beautiful stuff.
That's great.
But aside from Star Wars, there's also other great content out there, and we as general fans of pop culture are like in the I think in the like zenith of American television shows and all these like streaming channels, I wanted to ask you about other inspirations because we have like the Lord of the Rings just dropped their Rings of Power. We have this House of Dragon continuing the story from the as a prequel to the Game of Thrones. We have Stranger Things, which is like encapsulating the best of the 80s and the Dungeons and Dragon cultures in America. Do you have any favorite shows at the moment? Anything else you're watching or reading outside of Star Wars?
I'm a giant Lord of the Rings fan. I love Lord of the Rings probably more than Star Wars, and I really love Star Wars. I've read the books several times, and it doesn't. People are upset about it, and they say that it's not good. I don't know what they're talking about. It was so much fun to me. The Harfoots, to see them and how they exist in that universe is beautiful. And then the story of Mordor getting the fires lit and the history of Sauron and all of that, and Gandalf. Oh my God, I couldn't get enough of it. I've probably watched it like 6 times now.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was really interested in how they were keeping the intrigue. It never felt like they're just pulling you by the nose and they're looking for show ratings, but it really felt natural and organic, like you're kind of exploring that world bit by bit and discovering what is happening in the world. Even though I understand there's some discrepancies between the source material because they couldn't secure all the rights, so they had to kind of like deviate from the original and be inventive and playful with it. I applaud that. I think that's good.
When people complain about it, I'm like, do you not want any more Lord of the Rings stuff? Because that's how you get it.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like just flawless. Obviously, like everything else had some shortcomings. I thought that some writing was a little bit on and off. Like there were a couple of moments there where they were trying to have these expositions or conversations where somebody's like teaching you a lesson, like a life lesson. Yeah. I felt some of it was sort of superficial. Like it's not comparable to Peter Jackson's writing style, but it's still good stuff. I enjoyed a lot of it.
I was a little disappointed that Galadriel was a small person when in reality she's like 7 foot tall. And that was about the extent of my complaining.
Yeah, I think
I didn't mind silly elf.
Yeah.
The boat looks up and I was like, oh, all right, get to the monsters. We're good. When I'm really into monster design and lore, so anything that has an orc or a monster or a troll or a goblin or anything like that, I'm absolutely into it.
I'm in there,
when I saw Star Wars for the first time and I saw that the Rancor, I was just like, oh my God. It's all the lights in my brain went off, and I was like 6 years old or something.
Yeah. The fantasy element has always been prominent.
Absolutely.
There. Yeah, I'm currently reading the Dragonlance books. I'm on the second trilogy. Some of my favorite fantasy of all time. I love.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, man, Dragonlance is awesome. Tracy Hickman and oh my God, I'm forgetting the other author. It's a collaboration between 2 authors. Great stuff. But what are your thoughts on other media? Have you considered in one of your videos? I heard that one of your friends makes zombie movies. I'm guessing like independent films. Have you considered exploring short films as other medium to tell your personal stories?
Yeah, I don't know why we don't do it. Every day we have the ability to go out and make a really bad movie, and nobody does it. I've thought about that so often. I was like, all you got to do is get one dude with some zombie makeup and just shoot some stuff in your own city, and you can make your own stories, and nobody does it. In fact, all the artists that are around me in my community, they're like, they hate video and they hate making TikToks and they hate. I'm like, there's a long history of artists making weird videos when it was difficult. Now it's just like it's right here. I can do all of it right here. Yeah. And we don't do it. I don't understand it. It seems like wasteful to me. I see these memes that are like make art, not content, and I'm like, I don't see a difference at all. I see my TikToks as a version of art and a version of reproduction. And I think it's fantastic and fun, and what an interesting future we live in, where we can communicate with each other. Like right now, I would have never met you if this was 1960.
Right.
But now I know you. I keep up with what you. I watched your trip to Russia. It was so much fun, and I love social media. Social media is the best.
Yeah.
I'm excited where it's going, because Mastodon and Hive are coming up, and they don't have algorithms, so it's more fair. My biggest bother with social media is that if I've got 100 followers and I post something, maybe 7 of them see it.
Yeah.
And if those 7 people are in a bad mood and don't like it,
yeah,
then they don't show it to anybody else. If you're following me, I kind of expect you to be able to see what I'm doing.
Yeah. David, first, I love your approach that you're in the words that you're saying, you have an opportunity to make a bad film and you would go out and do it. That's the best mentality and mindset to go and do it. This is exactly how George Lucas went and did Star Wars. He's like, I'm going to make my movie. I don't care if you think it's crap. I'm just going to do it the way I know best for myself, and I hope the audience is going to like it. And lo and behold, it became a global phenomenon overnight. And the second component to that is that just like somebody could sit at home now and write music in the space of their apartment with their little MacBook Pro and create professional sound and score, so that you could grab your latest iPad or smartest iPhone 14, go out there and shoot video in 4K and make your video. All you have to do is try, right? Just like those tons of different YouTubers who do their fan Star Wars films. I mean, that's awesome.
I think that the entertainment industry is becoming decentralized.
Yeah.
It used to be the only way to exist as a famous entertainer was to be in New York or to be in LA. And you might see something from Florida and you might see something from the Midwest, but it's not going to be the same quality and it's not going to be as big.
Right.
But now I'm in a medium-sized city in Ohio, and I have the same platform as someone in a basement in California.
Yeah.
And I have the opportunities to make good or bad art. And I'm gonna make something no matter what. So if it's bad, it's gonna be bad. My YouTube videos are pretty painful to watch sometimes, but you got to suck at something for a long time to get good at it. And I've accepted that, and I don't mind sucking publicly.
I love that attitude, man. I really, really love that. It's awesome. It's courageous. It's how you do things and get better at them.
It's also terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, they are like everything else in life. I mean, your first step, your first bicycle ride, it's all terrifying. You fall on your ass a couple of times. You get up, it's like, I know how to do it now, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
David, before we leave, first of all, thank you so much for being here again. It's honestly a privilege to get to know you a little bit better, to sit down and talk Star Wars with you, to talk about your personal art. I think what you're doing for fans, for the art world in general out there is really, really awesome. And I hope we get to sit down and talk again, man.
Absolutely the same. You're the most fun to do a video with.
Thank you. And before we leave, so I just prepared these quick 5 yes or no questions for you. If you could answer them for me, please, yes or no. And then if you want to elaborate on any one of them, please go ahead. It's just, I don't know where they came from. Don't ask. I don't care how good or bad they are. Here we go. You ready?
Yes.
All right. So first question.
That wasn't the first question?
No, it wasn't the first question.
Okay. Are you ready?
That would be too simple. If a TIE fighter has emergency landing on an American farm, would it be considered as a UFO?
Yes.
Even though...
Unless they knew what it was, then it'd be an unidentified flying object.
That's what I'm saying. Like, everybody knows Star Wars. It's like, I know what that is. That's no surprise.
Yeah.
Right?
They also don't say UFO anymore. It's something else now.
Yeah. It's something different. Since we started monitoring this whole movements in objects moving in the air more. Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
Second question.
Okay.
Does Anakin Skywalker miss using his shampoo as Vader?
Okay, so he grew up on a planet that was sand,
Right.
and a lot of places like that will clean themselves with dirt.
Right.
And he gave his droids an oil bath, but we never really explored how he cleans himself. But in New Hope, he obviously has a blow dryer. So yes, I would say yes, he does miss his shampoo.
I think he 100% misses it. Especially when he's like Vader, his skull is all burned. He's like, I used to be handsome and young. What the hell is this? Like, I don't vibe with that new look.
Do you think he sees himself ever? Do you think he ever takes the mask off and looks in a mirror?
I don't know that, but I'm 100% sure he has this mental image of who he was. That's something that he suffers with, right? Like, I used to be in love with this beautiful princess, Padme, queen, and I used to be this dashing young man, and now I'm this grotesque little walking monster. Half machine, half man.
Have you noticed that Hayden Christensen somehow looks like a boy and an adult at the same time?
Yeah, he definitely has that boyish, charismatic look about him. Definitely. Even in a Kenobi show, he has that youthful charisma to him.
Oh my God, how fun was that? It slipped my mind that happened. That when he pops up, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And the fight scenes were so good.
Yeah. It was definitely a nostalgic feeling where they kind of brought these two actors back from 20 years ago, and you see Hayden Christensen, like they de-age him just a tiny bit, but primarily it's him, it's his face, and I think he looked correct right in that role.
And what's his name? Obi-Wan.
Ewan McGregor.
How fun is it that we got to see him play him as a young man, and now he's older, and he's playing him as an older man. And as he ages, he's just going to continue to be older Obi-Wan Kenobi. How could he have ever guessed that in the year 2022, he'd still be doing Star Wars stuff and love it and doing great stuff too?
Yeah. But David, it's not the end of my questions. We're not done yet.
Oh, sorry.
So, next one. Here we go. You ready?
Okay, go for it.
If Count Dooku held office in American politics, what would be his post?
What would be his post?
Yeah, like, or what office would he hold?
I don't think he'd be a president.
No.
A senator. I think he'd be a senator.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. He'd be not the main dude, but he'd be a main dude.
Okay. A senator of New York State, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Hey, senator.
Okay, all right. Something we can agree on. All right, keep moving. If Pink Floyd named... hold on a second. Hold on, let me concentrate. If Pink Floyd named their album The Dark Side of the Force, would Darth Maul make a guest appearance on the vocals?
I think so, yeah.
Would he sound like one of those like black metal bands, like like those dudes?
Yes, I think so. That'd be great.
They'll probably use his skull as like basically like outline it like a moon, but it's like light hitting it, and you see his horns. Great album cover, I think.
Rainbow coming out.
There you go.
Killer.
All right, last question.
Sure.
In The Empire Strikes Back, did Leia know that Luke is her brother when she gave him that kiss?
I don't know. That really, it was a, having the Force kind of makes you sensitive. So yeah, I think on some level.
Yeah.
But
she says she always knew, right? In the last movie, in episode 6, she said, I always knew you were my brother.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I think she knew because there was a revenge kiss. It was not a sensual kind of like, I'm into you kind of kiss. It's like, I'm obviously into this guy, but he's an asshole. He's giving me too many woes. It's like, as a female, it was her little moment of vengeance. Like, I'm going to kiss Luke over here.
Yeah,
But he's my brother. Let's not get carried away there.
I don't know if George Lucas knew they were brother and sister at that point.
No, he didn't know. He tells us this big fabulous story how he had like 25 movies planned, but as all creative work, you kind of like go and you play around with it, and at different years where you see Lucas's interviews, different points, is like his ideas change all around. And it's fine. It's not a critique from me. That's what artists do. You always rearrange your pieces on the chessboard. You figure out what the story is going to be.
Nobody can replicate what Tolkien did.
Yeah.
Because he took 17 years to write the books.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes that long to really solve every single problem and go backwards and forwards and really, and even then there's still parts of Lord of the Rings that don't make perfect sense.
And they don't have to be. That's the point, right? I think if there's anything we can draw from our today's conversation is that embrace things for what they are and don't look for perfection everywhere. And you'll be much more happier for it as a fan. You'll get to enjoy what's out there. I'm happy we got more Lord of the Rings. I'm happy we got more Star Wars. I didn't enjoy Kenobi's show. You loved it. I'm happy it exists for fans out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Keep piling it on.
There you go.
Keep giving us Star Wars.
Please do. Please do. And I think there will be a moment where you'll find something for yourself. Be like, oh, this was tailored to me, like Andor show. I was waiting for something like this for decades, and it finally arrived.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, David, once again, it's really awesome to talk to you, guys. I will include all of his relevant links to his Instagram, to his channels, where you can check out his work. Don't forget about his calendar. If you're interested in that, I'll also include the link where you can go and check it out, pick it up. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. Please support us. We really hope you like subscribe to my channel, follow David, check out his work. If you have any comments, there's something particularly stood out to you during this podcast that you were interested in, or you want to ask us questions, please drop it in the video section below. We will check you out next time. Take care, everybody.